So the moves around the NFL keep on coming during day 2 of free agency frenzy, but a couple teams in particular have made some rather interesting decisions. In fact, some of these moves don't yet make much sense at all, so I've got to talk about that. The Vikings spending money most likely given to them by Chiefsaholic. It's the only explanation. Several quarterback moves and more right after. Alright, with day 2 of free agency, frenzy, tampering period, whatever you want to call it, starting to wind down, we've got a ton more moves to break down. Let's go back to last night first. Former Steelers running back Najee Harris signed a 1-year deal with the Chargers, worth up to $9.25 million. J.K. Dobbins is still a free agent, and the signing of Najee Harris likely means Dobbins won't be going back to L.A. I mean, it makes sense. Dobbins has had a litany of injury problems, and even though he stayed relatively healthy last year, he did miss 4 games due to an MCL sprain. Meanwhile, Najee Harris hasn't missed a game in his first 4 years in the league, and he's also gone over 1,000 yards every single year. Plus, he has just 4 career fumbles, only losing 2, and he didn't fumble a single time on over 260 carries last season. However, his career yards per carry is only 3.9, which is honestly pretty low for a guy that averages over 1,000 yards a season. But the point is, he's reliable and dependable, which is something that Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers offense covet. Plus, if anyone can get the most out of a running back in general, it's going to be Harbaugh without a shadow of a doubt. Then the Minnesota Vikings went absolutely nuclear last night and early this morning after starting out slow in day 1. Their only move for most of Monday was signing cornerback Isaiah Rodgers to an affordable 2-year deal. Far from a major splash, but then later that evening, they signed center Ryan Kelly to a 2-year, $18 million deal. They then re-signed cornerback Byron Murphy to a massive 3-year, $66 million deal, making him one of the 3 highest paid corners. Then this morning, they inked former Commanders defensive tackle Jonathan Allen to a 3-year, $60 million deal, and they still weren't done. They're reportedly closing in on a deal with former 49ers defensive tackle Javon Hargrave. He's expected to sign with the Vikings once he's officially released by the 49ers on Wednesday. More on the 49ers here in a bit because there's a lot going on over there in San Francisco. Then shortly after that was announced, talking about the Javon Hargrave signing, or the signing that's soon to be, they made yet another huge splash, bringing in former Colts guard Will Fries on a monster 5-year, $88 million contract. Minnesota had major holes to fill on the interior of both lines. I mean, fans were clamoring for Trey Smith before the Chiefs franchise tagged him, and in less than 24 hours, they added 2 key interior pieces for each side of the ball. Minnesota went so insane that at least after these moves were made, they spent more in free agency than any other team by $40 million, $262 million in total, and I don't believe that yet includes the Javon Hargrave signing/contract because that hasn't happened yet. Now, this is helped by the fact that they have a quarterback on their rookie deal in J.J. McCarthy. And speaking of quarterbacks, they are in the market for a backup quarterback for sure because Daniel Jones is headed to the Colts on a 1-year, $14 million deal that could be up to $17 million. The Vikings were trying to bring him back, but I think he realized, talking about Daniel Jones, he probably has a better shot to push Anthony Richardson for the starting job than he does J.J. McCarthy. Kevin O'Connell has been pretty clear in his pressers that McCarthy is the franchise QB moving forward. The Vikings have now lost all of their quarterbacks on last year's roster other than J.J. McCarthy, obviously, and practice squad quarterback Brett Rippin. Daniel Jones is now a Colt, Nick Mullins is with the Jags, and then, of course, Sam Darnold is now rich and also with the Seattle Seahawks. And then the Giants made another splash in free agency today, signing what some believe to be the best available safety, Javon Holland, to a 3-year, $45 million deal with a little over $30 million guaranteed. They're definitely working hard to retool their defense, as yesterday they inked cornerback Paulson Adebo to a 3-year, $54 million deal, as well as defensive end Chauncey Golston to another 3-year deal. So that's good for the defense, but there's still a team to watch for Aaron Rodgers on offense as well. And at least as of when I'm recording this video, the 2 most likely landing spots for him are the Giants or the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers, if he's the quarterback, will have Darius Slayton to throw to as they re-signed him to a 3-year deal. Then they also have, of course, Malik Neighbors. So that's tempting, but if I'm Rodgers, I'm taking the Pittsburgh Steelers. Give me DK Metcalf, give me George Pickens, give me Mike Tomlin all day, every day over the Giants. Now, the Vikings are also a dark horse third option if they don't feel confident in handing the keys to J.J. McCarthy quite yet. And Aaron Rodgers might be holding out, hoping he can get to Minnesota, because out of all three teams we just talked about, I would much prefer throwing passes to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. Next up, I currently have no idea what the Houston Texans are doing. Yesterday, they traded one of the best left tackles in all the football away in Laremy Tunsil to the Washington Commanders. Now, sure, they got a decent return for him, to be clear. They nabbed a 2025 third and seventh rounder, plus a 2026 second and fourth round pick, while they also sent back a 2025 fourth round pick along with Laremy Tunsil himself. And even though they got some nice draft capital, they just gave up their franchise quarterback's blindside protector. Now, Tunsil will be 31 in August, and based on the look of his contract, he most likely gets extended by the Commanders because there's an out on his deal after the 2025 season, and I highly doubt Washington would be willing to give up that much draft capital for him if the plan wasn't to keep him around for more than 2 seasons. Either way, I guess we shall see. I would assume if an extension comes, it would be sooner rather than later, but they do have some time if they would like to wait that out and see how he performs this year. Regardless, it seems like Houston wasn't willing to go that direction with Tunsil, and so to Washington he goes. Offensive line is the Texans' biggest need heading into this season, considering Stroud was sacked 52 times last year. Well, I'm confused because not only did they trade away their staple left tackle in Laremy Tunsil, but earlier this morning they sent former first-round guard Kenyon Green to the Eagles for C.J. Gardner-Johnson plus a future pick swap. So another lineman gone, but they did get a boost in their secondary, which is nice. I mean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, solid top 5 safety in several key stats, and he's going to bring some toughness to that defense for sure. But initially, I was incredibly confused as to how a team that needs O-line help can trade away not one, but 2 pieces along the line in less than 24 hours. Kenyon Green is less of a loss, though, to be clear. He hasn't lived up to his former first-round pick status and is nowhere near the player Laremy Tunsil is. He was a starter, though, until he suffered a shoulder injury in Week 9 and landed on IR. He came back for the final 3 games of the season, but didn't start. Even still, he could have maybe been the primary backup at least, right? Well, doesn't matter now. He gone. And they actually did bring in his presumed to be replacement just a bit ago today. They signed guard Laken Tomlinson to a 1-year, $4.25 million deal that can get up to $5 million. He's been quite the journeyman throughout his career, playing on 5 different teams through his 10 seasons in the league. He is 33 years old, so probably doesn't have a ton of football left in him, but he's only on a 1-year deal, so doesn't really matter. But get this, if my research is correct, the guy hasn't missed a game since 2017, which is incredibly impressive. He's not the greatest player out there, allowing 6 sacks and 11 pressures last year, but he could be a decent bridge player for a season, assuming the Texans draft some linemen in April. Obviously, they can still go out and sign another guy or 2, and probably should, but by now, the best offensive linemen, at least top offensive linemen, have already gone off the board, and I'll be curious to see what they do next, both in the remainder of free agency as well as the draft. Next up, we've got to talk about the 49ers and the insane amount of turnover they've had this offseason, as it looks like they are hitting a complete rebuild. I mean, not quite a complete rebuild, but it seems close. They do still have CMC under contract. We'll see how he bounces back from injury. They have George Kittle, but he's soon to be 31. Brandon Ayuk, he's 26, but coming off the knee injury, and they even said they were willing to explore trade offers for him. And then they still have Brock Purdy, but are about to pay this man a truck ton of money. Either way, look at all the moves the 49ers have made or didn't make so far, letting people walk, and who they opted not to bring back. So far, San Francisco has traded away Deebo Samuel to the Commanders, then Dre Greenlaw, Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, Aaron Banks, Jalen Moore, Elijah Mitchell, and backup QB Josh Dobbs, all left in free agency. They've also now released Kyle Juszczyk, longtime fullback, Leonard Floyd, Javon Hargrave, and Malik Collins. So as you can see, they've lost a ton of key pieces, most of which had been with the team for multiple years. But this is the unfortunate reality of having elite talent and trying to pay them all. You can't do it, and we knew this day would be coming, and it's finally here because, again, Brock Purdy is about to get paid. They had a hell of a run with him on his rookie deal, lots of talent, but sadly couldn't get a ring. We all know why, but no comment from me. Now, I still don't think the 49ers are completely doomed here. I already mentioned they still have some key pieces around, but they have a long way to go to get back to the level they were at 2023 and before. Now, one of those players San Francisco lost, Leonard Floyd, has already found a new home. He's heading to Atlanta on a 1-year deal worth up to $10 million. He will be 33 next season, but the veteran edge rusher has combined for 19 sacks over the past 2 years, so I do believe he still has some gas left in the tank. And sticking with the Falcons here, they re-signed cornerback Mike Hughes to a 3-year, $18 million deal. A first-round pick of the Vikings back in 2018, Hughes spent the last 2 seasons in Atlanta, and now he's set to be there for the foreseeable future. And since we're talking defensive backs, a pretty notable one just inked a deal with the Saints, and that is former Chiefs safety Justin Reid. He agreed to a 3-year, $31.5 million deal that includes $22.25 million fully guaranteed as he heads to New Orleans and his home state, Louisiana. Then Tyrann Mathieu actually reworked his deal with the Saints to help keep him around for at least one more year. He's now set to make up to $7.2 million with incentives. Now, what's kind of funny about the Saints' new safety duo is that Tyrann Mathieu actually signed a very similar deal with them back in 2022 when his deal was also up with the Chiefs, and that deal looks something like 3 years, $33 million, and both Tyrann Mathieu and Justin Reid are from Louisiana. Plus, they've actually been teammates before already for 1 year back in 2018 in Houston during Justin Reid's rookie year. So New Orleans beefed up the secondary a bit there, and they also retained a solid piece on offense in tight end Juwan Johnson, signing him to a 3-year, $30.75 million deal that can get as high as $34.5 million. And if I can ping pong back to the defense for a second, I should add that they also re-signed defensive end Chase Young to a 3-year, $51 million deal worth up to $57 million. Last year in free agency, he signed a 1-year deal with the Saints worth up to $13 million. Had a pretty decent year in 2024, 5.5 sacks, and then cashed in on a big-time deal. And while there are probably going to be a plethora of other moves made, as of when I'm recording this video at 6 p.m., those are all the major moves made, but I gotta know your thoughts on some of these teams, man. What do you think the Texans are doing? Are the 49ers in a full rebuild? What are some of the favorite moves you've seen that have happened today, day 2 of free agency frenzy? Let me know all that in the comments down below, and with that, I'll see y'all next time.